What if the Holy Roman Empire was Holy, Roman and an empire? The Holy Roman Empire of the German nation was created in 962 by Otto the Great and lasted until 1806 when it was dissolved by Francis II. It was created out of East Francia, one of the three successor states of the Carolingian Empire founded by Charlemagne, and as you can guess by its name was the spiritual successor to Rome, as Charlemagne was crowned emperor by the Pope. The Holy Roman Empire has a reputation of being a laughingstock, which is best amplified by a quote from Voltaire describing it as neither holy, Roman and an empire. This boss reputation comes from the falling out between the Holy Roman Emperor and Pope, their loss of the Papal States, and with that Rome, and lastly their failure in centralizing, which got even worse thanks to the Treaty of Westphalia after the 30 Years' War. Though it was a bad reputation, it is, with 844 years, one of the longest-lasting empires in human history and would greatly impact human history. But what if that didn't happen? What if the Holy Roman Empire was Holy, Roman and an empire? In this timeline, succession in the empire is based on male-only primogeniture rather than having a system in which 8 electors elect the emperor. Like in our own timeline, after Otto I dies, Otto II and III followed by Henry II become emperor. With that, the Ottonian dynasty dies out, and so the closest relative of Otto I, namely his great-great-grandchild Conrad of the Salian dynasty, would become emperor as Conrad II. Like in our own timeline, the Salian dynasty rules over the Holy Roman Empire until 1125 when Henry V dies. Fortunately for the empire, he had a sister, namely Agnes of Germany, and so her son Conrad, who is from the House of Hohenstaufen, succeeds the throne as Conrad III, followed by his nephew Frederick I, or better known as Frederick Barbarossa. After Frederick II died in 1250, the line of Philip of Swabia, who was also a son of Frederick Barbarossa, became the dominant one. But given that he and his daughter were dead, and so his grandson Henry III of Brabant was crowned as Henry VII. He is followed by his son John I, followed by the second and the third. After John III had no son, the line moved back to his great-great-grandfather Henry II, Duke of Brabant, and from him to his other son Henry I, Landgrave of Hesse. Hermann II would be crowned as Hermann I, and from this point on the House of Hesse would be ruling over Germany, with the current king being Henry X. Also, with the emperor being undoubtedly in charge, he doesn't install his own abbots, which would cause a schism with the Pope. With him not having a falling out with the Pope, he is able to integrate Naples and Sicily to the empire. The Seljuk Turks would still take Anatolia from the Byzantine Empire, causing the Crusades, but this hardly changes anything. However, when the Teutonic Knights invade the Baltics in Prussia and Livonia, their territories would be added to the Holy Roman Empire. The 100 Years' War still happens over the succession to the French throne, but in this timeline the Holy Roman Empire invades France, and with them having to fight foes on both sides, they crumble and are partitioned between the Holy Roman Empire and Kingdom of England. All the lands that the Kingdom of England held under Henry II and Richard the Lionheart, which is also known commonly as the Angevin Empire, namely Maine-Anjou, Touraine, Normandy, Brittany, and Aquitaine, were returned to England, and they also got the county of Toulouse. The rest of France, including its capital Paris, Burgundy, Champagne, and Blois, were added to the Holy Roman Empire. The Kingdom of England would rename itself to the Kingdom of France. This is because their monarchs saw themselves until 1453 as French rather than English, and the war wasn't one of conquest, but rather one of succession. After Henry VI dies without a heir, the line moves back to his great-grandfather John of Gaunt, and from him to his second oldest son John Beaufort, Earl of Somerset, to his son Edmund, and from him to his son Henry as Henry VII. Ever since 2017, Henry XIX is King of France. England wouldn't unite with Scotland through a personal union, but rather through military conquest. The Protestant Reformation may still happen, and if we assume that the monarchs of Hesse still convert, we would have a mostly Protestant empire, which would be terrible for the Pope, given that he resides inside the empire. Meanwhile, without Henry VIII, England remains Catholic. The Habsburgs still take over Spain, but in this timeline they aren't monarchs, but merely a powerless royal family within the WHO. And when Carlos II dies, another branch of his family, starting with Carlos III, succeeds him, as the only reason why he didn't become King of Spain was because he was already Holy Roman Emperor. and from 1711 on the Archdukes of Austria would rule over Spain. Furthermore, if no 30 Years' War, Spain keeps Portugal. The Ottoman Empire still expands into the Balkans, and after they defeat the Hungarians in 1526 they take all of Hungary, as the Habsburg won't be able to take some for themselves. Besides that, they never expand into Germany because the Holy Roman capital is all the way in Aachen. Meanwhile, the Holy Roman Empire won't invade the Ottoman Empire as their capital is all the way in Constantinople, meaning an unsteady standoff emerges. In this timeline, neither Poland, Lithuania nor Sweden own Livonia as it is part of the WHO, and so Poland-Lithuania doesn't join the anti-Swedish coalition, which now only consists of Denmark, Norway and Russia. Denmark-Norway is still quickly defeated, and has to sign a white peace, after which Sweden focuses on Russia. They defeat the Russians at Narva and pursue them and force them to make peace, and lose Novgorod, Karelia and Kola. Unfortunately for Poland, they would not evade partition as the WHO annexes Poland except for Ruthenia, and also Samojeda. Russia annexes most of Lithuania except for Samojeda and also Ruthenia. The Holy Roman Empire being more centralized could lead to them having colonial possessions like France or Spain, which could look something like that. Without a 7 Years' War, all potential participants managed to keep their colonial possessions. The 13 colonies don't rise up OV taxes and France doesn't fall to revolution. Another outcome is that neither England nor France would own Bengal, and so the colonization of India culminating in the formation of British Raj never happens, and the Maratha hold on to power, but like any other Indian dynasty they would end up falling apart after just 1 or 2 centuries, and India balkanizes again, with a potential new great power uniting India in the 20th or 21st century. It is possible that other countries like France, the WHO, Persia, or the Qing dynasty may try to extend their sphere of influence into South Asia, with one dynasty ruling over each sphere of influence. Without the existence of the East India Company, the British/French don't come in contact with China and don't try to sell opium to them, which means the Opium Wars, unequal treaties and century of humiliation don't take place. This also causes the king to hold on to power and continue to this day ruling over China with an iron fist. It is however still possible that the great powers force Japan to open up, and after modernizing would take Korea, Taiwan and Liaoning Peninsula from China. Fortunately for China, the European powers wouldn't really take notice of what happened in East Asia. After the Dowager Empress Cixi dies in 1908, the Qing Empire would introduce reforms that aim to modernize the nation to industrialize. Fearing to be eclipsed by China, Japan invades China in 1931, starting the Second Sino-Japanese War to prevent that from happening. Japan would see success at first as they expand into Manchuria, but their advance quickly stales, and then China would start to push them back until they are pushed all the way to Busan. They would seek an armistice, which is rejected as the Chinese seek unconditional surrender. In the end, they retake all the lands lost in the First Sino-Japanese War, and Japan becomes a Chinese client state. In the early 20th century, the Great War breaks out when France and Russia team up and declare war on the WHO. This war goes poorly as Russia is even more backwards than in our own timeline, and the Ottomans join on the side of their old foe. In the end, the French were kicked out mainland France, which the Holy Roman Empire re-annexes, finally reuniting all the lands held under Charlemagne. In the east, the WHO puppets the Kingdom of Lithuania under Mindaugas II. The Ottoman Empire would establish puppet states in the Caucasus and Persia, which was until then a Russian vassal state. The Ottomans also re-annex all the lands they held in 1590. France also loses its North American and African colonies. In this timeline, the Holy Roman Empire is the most powerful nation in the world and stretches from Brittany all the way to Smolensk in Russia and from Estonia to Sicily. They have a huge and professional army and a vast colonial empire on which the sun never sets, and the #1 economy. They also invented the nuke and still have the most nukes. In this timeline, the world as a whole is more feudal-like before the French Revolution, with democracies and republics not existing, but rather absolute monarchs. If you liked the episode, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.